Okay, I'm live now. Sorry about the delay, guys. About 5 minutes late. How you doing? Hope you're all right. So I just want to say hello to everyone here. Just going to check that I'm actually online. Yeah, good. Big hello to Body Technician Max Q, who's just retracted a message. But Max, I know you're on your lunchtime. Beware, even when you retract the message, I can still see them. Hello, Nihilist Lives Matter. What's this stream about? It's in the title, Nihilist. All right. I Googled it. Oh, right. What was it Richard Hoagland used to say? Google is your friend. Max Q says SpaceX plan to launch the most powerful rocket ever built. The 2x SLS, twice the SLS or Saturn V. Starship Super Heavy on 417. Will you be covering that? Yeah, sure, we can cover that. Hello, Fletch. 1 hour and counting. Yeah. Hello, Martin Taylor. Hello, David Spenzization. Hello, Israel Diego Rivera Genius 2, the real genius. How are you guys? Are you all right? Yeah. Hello. Good to see you. Yes, I know. I know, Max. That was me. All right. Hello. How are you all? Hello. Hey, Della. Hello, darling. How you doing? Hi, Della. How's things? Are you all right? And it was good to see you all. Welcome to this live stream. Hello, Jay Lee. How are you? This new live stream, which is all about wow, Neil says the most. Yes. Good point, Neil. We'll be coming on to that. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it, Della. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah. Now I have behind me an image of the Earth. You can see actually there. It's that you can only just you can't actually see it very well, but this is actually the east. That is the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, and behind my back there is that's you see there is Israel and the Dead Sea, and just behind my back is the Sinai Peninsula. So it's that sort of region, and this was taken from the International Space Station, which is real. I mean, I don't believe that is fake. I know some people may believe that is fake. I personally don't. I think the ISS is real. Yeah, Neil and I have been discussing something privately, about Apollo 16, which I won't share with you now. We're still doing it privately, but could be smoking gun stuff, guys. Could be smoking gun stuff. Where's Wales? Where? Well, you're there, Welsh, aren't you? I'm a Welsh boy too, but I'm an expat. Anyway, I thought I would get this show on the road. Oh, my screenshots just appeared. Oh, wonderful. I had a really good screenshot I wanted to put on. Here we go. On the reason is I wanted a good thumbnail, and the reason I'm a bit late is because I was doing my correspondence for the Hapanlo show tomorrow night. It seemed to go on a lot longer than normal. It had like almost 2 hours worth of letters, which means either the information is getting more interesting, or for that matter, or more people are writing to me. Probably a bit of both, actually. There we go. I've got a new thumbnail now. I'm actually going to just quickly add this new thumbnail. Because the one I actually got wasn't very good, I don't think. I made one earlier, as they say on Blue Peter, and it was a pretty lousy one. So I'm just going to use this new one. I'll probably use it on the notice as well. There we go. It's basically me. It's a picture of me in the studio now. Is that saved? No, come on. Everything's running so slow tonight. It really is. I've got a new computer. I just haven't actually got it out of its box yet. I know it's a bit strange, isn't it? It's a bit strange to do that, I suppose. But I just found myself kind of getting it, because setting up the new computer, transferring all the files, things like that, it just takes so bloody long. I'm like, oh, all right. How's that? Is that better? Yes, I think it is. Whoops. Undo. Let's just see what it looks like on preview. Sorry, guys, I'm just fiddling at the moment. I haven't forgotten you. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That will do. Yeah. Right. Where was I? let's get to the point, will we? Okay. Max says, well, why would SpaceX build a rocket that isn't Neil? Yes. Last of the Welsh purebloods, says Welsh Ripper. Indeed, well, actually, my mother was a Dutch woman, so I'm kind of a hybrid in that respect. But anyway, guys, we're here to talk Artemis 2. Right, now, Artemis 2, there was a big announcement a little while ago. Jarrah White has covered this very well. We'll be covering his 2 videos on this. Hello, Body Technician says here. Came across Kev Baker's show on Atlantis recently. It was brilliant. Yeah, oh my God. It's so good that his stuff's been preserved. I mean, it would be an absolute tragedy if it was just all to be lost. It was all lost. Now, it's still behind the paywall on TFR. And I thought to myself, well, can't they make it free now? I mean, I don't run the thing. I'm not passing judgment on them for that. But because Kev was their flagship show. The thing is, he also put a lot of his stuff up on YouTube and places like that. I've created an archive as well of most of the shows I was on. So yeah, that's really, really good. But anyway, Artemis 2 is the second scheduled mission of NASA's Artemis program and the first scheduled manned mission of NASA's Orion spacecraft. This is reading from old Wikipedia here. I'm just going through Wikipedia. This is the mission. I'll show you it actually. I'll show you the page. Here we go. Right, I'll just do the usual. Share screen. Excuse me. Come on. I've frozen up completely. Right. I don't know if you can hear me or not. My browser is just hourglassing totally right now. Right. Am I back? Good. There we go. Share system audio. Not that you're going to need that. Okay, so that is the Artemis 2 here. First manned test flight to the moon since Apollo. It's not a test flight. It's actually they're not testing anything, but these are the different stages here. Blast off from the astronauts lift off from the pad at 3B at Kennedy Space Center. Jettison solid rocket boosters at number 2. Fairings and launch abort system. 3. Core stage main engine cut off with separation. 4. Perigee raise maneuver. Perigee means as close to the Earth as possible. That's when it's in orbit, like. And then we go around here to number 5. Apogee raise burn to high Earth orbit. Now, apogee means as far at the highest point in the orbit. Begin 23.5 hour checkout of spacecraft. It's going to be hard work for the astronauts, I'll tell you. And then we are. It's number 6 is here. It's in orange here. Orion separation from interim cryogenic propulsion stage (CPS), followed by Prox Ops demo, plus manual handling qualities assessment for up to 2 hours. And number 7 here. Orion upstage separation USS burn. Begin high Earth orbit checkout, life support exercise, and habitation equipment evaluations. USS does not stand for USS Enterprise or anything like that. Number 8. It's in orbit still at the moment. Looks more complicated than Apollo. But trans-lunar injection, TLI, by Orion's main engine. Go for TLI. Remember that Apollo 11 film I saw? Lunar free return trajectory initiated with European service module. Number 10. Outboard transit to the moon. There we go. 11. Lunar flyby. 6,479 miles. Mean from the lunar far side altitude. Right. And finally, trans-Earth return trajectory correction, RTC, burns as necessary to aim for the Earth's atmosphere. Travel time approximately 4 days. 11. There we go. And then we have that's 12. 11, 13. Crew module separation to service module. You see, this here shows you This diagram here shows you proximate operations deconstruction sequence. That's the orange bit there that you can look through at your leisure. Entry interface. Enter Earth's atmosphere. 14, 16. Splashdown. Ship recovers astronauts and capsule. This was done with the unmanned rocket, if you remember, previously, up Artemis 1. What do you reckon, guys? Sounds. I'll go through your comments now. Of course, they're testing their stuff. That's why it's a test mission. All right, so because this is, oh, you're right, okay, but it's going to be, it's allegedly there's going to be no landing. There's no lunar module with this one. They're just flying around the moon and coming back, similar to Apollo 8 supposedly did. Martin says, Ben, have you seen Jimmy Jean show part of the new IBN? Also Walter Bosley and many others 24/7. Oh, I haven't. No, I was going to be on Jimmy's show. He contacted me about doing a show with him, and he did mention he was going to do a new show. He did mention Walter Bosley would be involved as well. Walter Bosley is a former colleague of Richard Doty, but, well, I don't hold that against him. Yeah, but he did mention this new station. I'd like to be a guest. I mean, he mentioned someone, I don't know how much I should say. Someone suggested that I could be like a host rather than a guest, but I don't think I've got time. I could be a guest on people's show. I don't think I could do my own show on this. Can't we get, here we are, Rail Tripper, can't we get Diane Abbott on the flight? Let's start to go. Firstly, we need a bigger spacecraft with a lot more fuel. Secondly, I don't know, she's the kind of person who would be so spiteful. She'd sabotage something, so she flies off into deep space, never to come back, just so she can say it's all white men's fault. Yeah, I wouldn't miss her though, would I? I mean, it's her and Brian Cox. Put the two together. The two of them, Diane Abbott and Professor Brian Cox, can get on a rocket and then go to some other planet and, start a new civilization there together. As far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see them. Yeah, I'd love to see them going. Yeah, sounds like bollocks. Independent Broadcast Network. That's it, Martin. Yeah, it's a great idea. I wish them luck. I wish Walter, Jimmy, and everyone else luck with that. And I'd great. No, what's that alien called? You asked for her. Oh. Diego Rivera. The crew looked like actors. I would be coming onto the crew in a minute. Yeah. Brian Cox is insufferable, Gradient Ledge. Yes, he is. I can't stand him and Diane Abbott are my two worst people in the world. If they ever had a son, they'd have to call him Damien. But yeah, that's the mission profile there we just showed you. Yes, but what if they mated Cox and Abbott? Yeah, they'd have to check his head for numbers. Put it that way. All right, guys. So we'll go back to Wikipedia. There we go. All right. So yeah, it's currently planned to be launched by the Space Launch System, which Max Q mentioned that the new SpaceX rocket is much more powerful than that, twice the power apparently. The manned Orion spacecraft will perform a lunar flyby, return to Earth. Artemis 2 is planned to be the first manned spacecraft to travel to the moon and beyond low Earth orbit since Apollo 17 in 1972. That's an awfully long time, isn't it? That is a hell of a long time. I mean, this is before my time. My parents remember this. It's before I was born. But people at that time in the 60s were like fascinated by this. This really enthralled them. As we said on a previous live stream, there was, and I mentioned on the Apollo Detectives, for the Apollo 11 landing in particular, there was something absolutely transcendental about it. It was like a lot of people considered it the greatest moment in human history, in a decade where there was the Vietnam War, there was poverty, there was strife, there was race riots and things like that, and there was so many social problems. This was one moment where everyone just came together and held hands, and it was like a kumbaya moment. And if you'd ask people what's going to happen next, we've got future Apollo missions, and there's going to be more. And like by the late 70s, we'll be able to take our holidays on the moon. and they'll be setting up cities on Mars by 1980, things like that. If you could take a science fiction space fan from the late 60s, transform him, or what's the word, transport him or her to the modern world, what would they say? They would gasp in dismay. It's 2023, and what, you haven't gone above low Earth orbit? Are you seriously telling me no human beings have gone above low Earth orbit since then? My God, I can't believe it. But it's true, wasn't it? It did sort of grind after Apollo 17. That was it. It just kind of like stop. The Russians never tried to reach the moon after that. There's been lots of talking about it, but let's go through your Simon Cowell. Yeah, I know. There's many people we'd want to put in space, I think. Are they considered the best and brightest? Rose Sun, it would be like that film Morons from Outer Space. That was good, isn't it? How long does it take to travel 250,000 miles? Well, it depends on how fast you're going. F Space gives food. And Max says, after 11 people couldn't care less, politicians couldn't justify the cost to voters, and Apollo was scrapped. Your version of history is incorrect. What? So, after its greatest achievement in history, politicians couldn't justify the cost to voters, and Apollo was scrapped? That is like Columbus getting off the boat, getting off his ship, stepping onto the beach, building a campfire and having a few cans, doing some sky watching and saying, "Okay, guys, that's it. We've really done enough now. I don't think we're going to be justify this to the voters." And I'm running. What happened to all the money? We had enough money to get this far. Did anyone? What happened to the rest of the money for the rest of the trip, guys? All right, we're gonna have to go home early. Get back on the ship, everyone. Max, it does not make sense. It does not make sense. Benjamin, Rose's son. No one's called me Benjamin since my mum, like about 15 years ago, when she was angry with me. That is my name, actually. Let's go back to this. Okay, so originally designated Exploration Mission 2, the mission was intended to collect samples from a captured asteroid in lunar orbit. On the now cancelled robotic asteroid redirect mission, it was renamed after the introduction of the Artemis program. The mission is also planned to be the first manned launch from LC-19B. All right, since STS-116. Right, this is the launch pad. STS-116 is a space shuttle. Is it the space shuttle? Yes, yes, it is. It's a space shuttle mission from 2002. That's been out of commission for a while, that launch pad. The Artemis mission's plan is to send 4 astronauts in the first manned Orion MPCV spacecraft into a lunar flyby for a maximum of 21 days using a Block 1 variant of the Space Launch System. The mission profile is a multi-translunar injection, multiple departure burns, and includes a free return trajectory from the moon. That means I think they're just going to free return. Does that mean they just don't need they don't have a rocket? They use the lunar gravity to come back. Like I think Apollo 13 did that as well, allegedly. During the time, the crew will perform various checkouts of the spacecraft's life support systems, as well as in-space rendezvous and proximity operations demonstration using the spent interim cryogenic propulsion stage as a target. All right. They're going to use it for something. Okay. I remember I saw something about that. I can't remember what it was exactly. It will fire its main engine to complete the TLA maneuver, which will send it to a lunar free return trajectory before returning to Earth. Right. Free return, I think, just means that they don't need any more rocket power to get back. History. I think we've covered the history of this. We mentioned we've already covered that on the previous video about Artemis 1. There's a picture. That's not a photograph, obviously, because who took the photo, guys? Eh? Who took the photo? Okay, here's the crew. Okay, Artemis 2 is to be manned by 4 astronauts, 3 of whom would be the first women, and the first person of colour. I hate. Why can't Americans? It's COLOUR. You bloody ignorant Yanks. And the first non-American. Oh, sorry. There's nothing. There's nothing woke about non-Americans. I'm a non-American. I'm not woke. All right. So let's go through the crew. Yeah, because this is. Someone mentioned they look like actors. Now there is actually, if you look at the notice for this particular live stream, I chose one of the various sort of pack shots the publicity shots they've got for these guys, these four people. And you can see these are very, very well made. These photographs are very well made. This must have taken a long time to get right. The lighting, the facial expressions, posture, background, and there's a whole series of photographs like this. There is. I'll see how you guys are getting on in here. Oh, Sweeps! Hey, Sweeps is here. Hello, how are you doing? We had Project Horizon. Oh, you mentioned, yeah, we talked privately about this, yeah, after the first moon landing in 1969, but we didn't, rumors say, we were warned off by aliens. So many early ufologists verify this reason. Well, I question whether they landed at all, Sweeps, but that the Apollo 11 astronauts I believe, did see something on their mission, because I do not dispute the Apollo 11 astronauts went into space. I believe they went into space, and I believe, and I also believe that that they had an experience while they were out in space. Oh, and new comments. What's this? Yeah. Oh, hello, COE11. I was 11 in July 1969. There was a lot of backlash about the cost. Then there was Nixon and Vietnam and hippies moaning. The Russians were beat, end of. See, I don't accept that. That's not really good. That doesn't seem like a good enough reason. Of course, there was the space race. There was this desire to be the first, especially after an entire decade where the Soviets were leading everything. It was important for America to be seen to catch up. It actually benefited both countries for America to be seen to catch up, which is one of the reasons why there was basically the USSR went along with it. There were several reasons, and that's one of them. It just that doesn't quite make sense, and we've talked about this in the Apollo Detectives videos. All right, yeah. Was Stanley Kubrick involved, Rose? That's what I'm wondering. Was Stanley Kubrick involved? Oh, sorry. This is this kind of conversation between Max and Rose, which has kind of got away with me. But Max believes the entire official story, which is fair enough. Max says, so politicians don't do stuff to win votes then, Lyle. Well, they do sometimes, yeah. What I said was fact. What you said you made up. No, it wasn't. Other way round. You're suggesting that something as grand as this could be stopped by, well, we can't afford it. Well, we can't even afford to borrow the money from the banks. We could afford 1.8 trillion for bailouts, but we can't afford, was it 20 billion for Apollo? The Russians might get there and put a base on the moon and things like that, a permanent base. But we have to stop now. Doesn't make sense, Max. Doesn't make sense at all. Let's go back to the Wikipedia. Okay, so these are the people here. Now, interestingly, this is Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. Now, this is the Commander Reed Wiseman. This is him here, who is he's a white male. That's him there, yeah. And then there's Victor Glover. He's the pilot. He's the pilot here. This is him in his NASA flight suit there, not the space suit. Christina Koch, Mission Specialist 1. Interestingly, she's also in a spacesuit here. She and Wiseman were both depicted in spacesuits, whereas Glover is in like a blue jumpsuit, like they wear on the ISS. Now, under this guy's in a blue jumpsuit as well. Jeremy Hansen, who is Canadian. Now, this is it's interesting. There's no. Firstly, there are no. They're not all American, as you can see here. You see the patch there. There's one Canadian among them. I don't know exactly how controversial that is. Oh, hello, Stephen Truthseeker. How you doing? Hello, 69 Phuket. Aren't they all Freemasons? I don't know. I don't know anything about their Freemasonic membership. I know that a lot of the Apollo astronauts were not that it's a lot of some of them were, some of them won't. I don't think it's necessarily relevant whether they are or not. I think it's that NASA, like all government agencies, has an occult element to it, but it doesn't. Oh well, they couldn't afford it. You made it up to. They couldn't justify it to the voters, who grasp give them their jobs in government. I know what grasp means. Grasp, but I think that's actually not the case. I mean, Max, it's a bit naive to say that. Well, this time they're bowing to the will of the people. They're just bowing to the will of the people. They always say they're bowing to the will of the people, and apparently they're giving people what they want. When they want to do something badly enough, they don't give a damn about the will of the people. Surely you realise that. Hello, Hatchy Hatchy. How are you? I'm very well. Thank you. How many are joint citizens of Israel? I don't know. I don't know if it does that make any difference. I mean, Israel has a space program, its own space program. You see, you know that the famous High Shed who says that they're aliens and things like that. What he said, he's actually head of Israel has a space force as well. United States Space Force is not the first in the world, so it could be that this mission has something to do with aliens and UFOs. In which case, it's possible Hyber Shed has something to have. Well, he's retired, I think. Shed, whoever's now in charge of the Israeli Space Force, may have some connection to monitoring aliens and things like that. The Artemis landing should be quite astonishing. Well, David, they haven't happened yet, have they? And this mission involves no landing. How's it go? Well, I'm not bad, Stephen. How are you? How are you? All right. So, I'll just show you some of the other. Let me just show you some of the other pictures of the astronauts. Artemis 2 astronauts. You can see all these photos here of them. And they've really gone to town on the artwork here. Look at this. These photos are very well done. See, here they are all together. This is more like an informal shot here. Who's that? Oh, that's Nelson. That's Bill Nelson there, head of NASA. He's an interesting guy when it comes to the UFO scene. That's the shot I chose for I chose that shot for the notice, as you can tell. And there's many others. There's several single shots of various people here. There's the pilot guy, and there's the other chap. There's the Canadian bloke with his helmet on. David says, do you believe they've proved the technology for getting there if nothing landed yet? Well, I'm glad to hear it. Stephen says I'm still alive. Thanks. I'm glad to hear it, Stephen. Bill Nelson, no, head of NASA, Senator Bill Nelson, head of NASA. Yes, Israel. We caught Marcus Allen out. This is Max Q in a lie this morning regarding his interview on Israeli television. He's given one account on Peel's channel and a different one on the Defective channel. You're not, Max. This is not all related to that nonsense about the British Interplanetary Society, is it? Because let's not forget that you you guys, you believers, falsely accused Marcus, including Steve Mumbling, falsely accused him of lying and changing his position and things like that when he hadn't. Oh my God, more will follow. Oh my God, this is quite something. Here we go. Sweeps says the exposed program of Space Warden and our outer system fleet exposed by Gary McKinnon, whom I did a show with, begs the question, are we at war or working with alien species in space right now? Sweeps, I didn't realize you had Gary on your show. That's really good. I've met Gary McKinnon once. Very brave, decent man who did something very important, I think, for human freedom and for the reality of exposing the reality of how we live, and almost paid a very heavy price for it. Right, we've got a breaking scandal here. No, it's nothing to do with BIS. This is a separate incident. Right. Marcus Allen, if you're watching, I think you're about to be exposed. Strap yourself in, guys. Call Get Hello on the phone. This is going to fill the gossip columns tomorrow. So, now this, I suppose, goes to the question of what is going to happen. And firstly, this mission is due to launch in November. And I see. I mean, you could the name for it. I suppose calling it a test mission is actually it is actually that. And it says here similar missions, and it says here I can show you the similar missions page here. Hang on. It is, I suppose, it is a test. It's fair enough to call it a test in that respect because it will primarily be about testing the Orion spacecraft and everything in it. This is flown right in December 1968. Apollo 8. Mission, manned by astronauts Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and William Anders, flew their command and service module beyond low Earth orbit and completed 10 orbits of the moon, similar to the planned Artemis 2 mission, that it was manned and did not land. It differed by being placed in orbit. Apollo 13, 1970, was the only Apollo mission that flew past the moon by a free return to trajectory. That's right. Apollo 13 allegedly had this accident whereby its main engine was broke down, and therefore it had to use this free return trajectory. In other words, use the lunar gravity to get back. It's slingshot around the moon and come back. It appears that Artemis 2 is planned to use the same. Same method. And there's stuff here about SpaceX here, so I won't read that right now. There's the Dear Moon project, which we talked about before. So yeah. Stephen says, is that picture behind you meant to be the Earth? And which part of the Earth? It actually is. This is the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. You can see up here, and there's this is Egypt and the Middle East, and the Holy Land there. There's the Dead Sea. That's Israel there. So yeah. So I suppose this is the big question is going to be, like, if you watch the Apollo Detectives, you know that we have raised what I think are serious questions about the Apollo missions of more than 50 years ago now. Too many to I don't need to summarize them here, but basically we've made a claim that they they have been fabricated in all or part. Hello, Torangan, how are you? So the question is, what is going to happen when this spacecraft launches? Now, at the moment, we're just in the preliminary stages. Excuse me. We're still, like I said, it was only a while ago that it was announced that the astronauts had actually been selected. It was announced the 4 astronauts that were going to be on this mission because, of course, Artemis 1 was unmanned. It had on board 3 dummies, I believe. And this one is going to have 4 real human beings. Now, I should say a word about the obvious. There's something very obvious about this, and it's not a secret. It's not a secret to say that there is a diversity higher element to this. I mean, I think, where is it? Here we go. From the very beginning, they've said that one of the crew would be a woman. They said that one of them, of all the four crew, one of them had to be a woman, and one of them had to be non-white. That was actually like a policy. Now, I suppose this fits into my general opinion of what's known as affirmative action or positive discrimination. I know this is going to be controversial for some of you. I don't care. I do not approve of it. I do not approve of it. I don't believe there is such a thing as systemic oppression by white men and all that sort of thing. I don't have to go into details now. I've covered this on so many previous videos. I mean, the points. I think that my video "Women in Ufology" is kind of like makes the points that I want to make about this whole situation. I think what applies to ufology applies to space exploration. But what's wrong with positive discrimination, stroke affirmative action? I think it's called affirmative action. I've noticed in the United States, positive discrimination is a British term. I mentioned this. I brought up in my BBC talk as well. It's essentially stating that we can heal an injustice by trying to cancel it out with another injustice, but that doesn't work because all you get then is a double dose of injustice. And it never ends. You see, once you start down this road, it doesn't stop at a certain point when we hit something called equality or whatever. It just carries on and on and on. It's designed to do that. It's actually designed to mess with our heads. It's something created by the fifth columnists, cultural Marxists, whatever you want to call them. And I think it wouldn't be valid even if the injustice they're trying to heal was a real one. In this case, it is not a real one. It is an engineered delusion. Therefore, I do not approve it. Now, I don't believe there's anything to any woman or black person or brown person who is good enough to be an astronaut. I don't believe there's certainly no policy stopping them from doing it. There's no one's ever published any documents saying that only white men can do this particular job. And I don't accept those who claim, but even if it's not official, it's still in there. It's tacit, unconscious bias. I don't believe that either. And so that's all I'm really going to say about it, is that I don't approve of that. This is not to say that I'm not suggesting that any of these people are in some way unworthy of being astronauts. I believe they are. There's no doubt they will have been still carefully trained and selected, and I would never dream of excluding any of them just as some kind of backlash against affirmative action and positive discrimination. But I just don't believe they should be selected for that reason. So, for example, if Koch here and this other guy, what's his name? Let's just go to the. Is it Glover, Koch and Glover? If they were selected, if, for example, if someone else was better than them and had done better in training and things like that, and this Koch and Glover were selected instead of that person, that would be unfair, because then you'd be essentially saying to that other person, well, because they're white men, we can't have them because they're white men. Interestingly, of all these four people, it's only the Canadian guy who is on his first space flight. For all the others, it's their second space flight. So Jeremy Hansen here, this Canadian guy, the mission specialist 2, he's the only one actually he's the white male, the white male, one of the two white men. He's actually the only one who is on his first mission. All the others are on their second space mission. So he's actually the least experienced one. Oh, we got here anomalous data point. Hello. Cox is a trickster, pretends to be bright. Are you talking about are you talking about Brian Cox? Oh, not him again. Now, yeah, and that Hansen guy's been thrown in the deep end, isn't he? Now, interestingly, I mean, maybe I know my American viewers may actually. Now Sweeps is Irish, but I know you Sweeps. You've lived in the United States, I believe. Or I think you've lived there. You speak with an American accent, and my American viewers may be able to answer me this question more than any others, because see the controversy on the selection of the astronauts. I've already gone into one element of that. Another, of course, is having a non-American on board on the first manned lunar mission. Now, is there something very... Here we go. This is interesting. It's an interesting comment. Martin Taylor, this mission, I believe, is a total smokescreen to what's really happening in space. Diversion. Correct. Max says it's a test mission because they're testing their hardware, not tested on Artemis 1. Fair enough, Max. Point taken. How controversial is it to have a non-American among the crew for this particular mission? I don't understand American politics to the point. Probably an American would know that. I mean, I'm guessing that that it's not. It depends on the nationality. It depends on the nationality of the non-American. I mean, I think if it was a Russian, would that be worse than having a Canadian? I think probably it would, because of the not. It's partly the political tension between Russia and the United States right now. Also, Max Q has answered this. Artemis is an international effort. Okay, so fair enough. If Canada has contributed to the development of the mission, then I suppose it's fair enough to have a non-American, a Canadian on board. I think if it were a Russian, even if Russia had contributed sometime before the Ukraine situation, there probably would be raised eyebrows over that. Also, I mean, if it was a British person, then I think that would be much less controversial than a Russian. Chinese, I don't know. What would people say if it was a Chinese person, for example? Because China, of course, is a global rival of the United States in terms of this new multipolar world we live in. And of course, China has actually, I suppose, has humbled America in many ways in terms of international politics, economics, things like that. But is also China has not contributed. All right, is contribution the only factor in the choice of a foreign person? Because if it is, fair enough. If Britain hadn't contributed, then I suppose having a British person would be the same as having a Chinese person, the same level of controversy. I don't know about that, actually, because Britain and America get on quite well. I mean, Sleepy Joe is actually... Sleepy Joe's in Northern Ireland at the moment. I don't know if he's actually coming over to the British mainland, but he is in Northern Ireland right now, sort of bopping it up in various places, drinking Guinness, that kind of thing. It's just a thought that no, they have a non-American. It's a Canadian. No one seems to. I haven't heard anyone object anyway. David says, do you know that the rocket designs the Soviets were using on the manned lunar program of the 1970s ended up in the hands of Americans who bought the original for $1 million apiece? No, I didn't know that. They're now used in national launch rockets and integrated into Artemis. The Russian design is so efficient and sophisticated. Ironic, really. Well, I know that they're still using the Soyuz type rockets, which they developed from the very earliest Soviet space rockets. I mean, obviously they've become a lot more sophisticated over the years, but they still call them Soyuz. They still call them Soyuz to get to the ISS. They still launch the Soyuz from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the big space center in Kazakhstan. Britain, right. Britain did contribute, right. So a Brit could go. Or maybe one of these missions will have a Brit on board. Tor says, could it be that Artemis turns out like MySpace? Oh, yes. What was it? Niall Murphy says, sent to the land of MySpace. I don't know. Oh, Jarrah White has... I don't know how many of you know Jarrah White. I mean, I've been on... He's on Apollo Detectives, of course, and he has here... hang on a sec. No, I'm not going to... This is... I'll come on to this in a minute. That's his video about... This is his channel, anyway. It's worth... Definitely check this guy out. definitely check this guy out. He's done a video here about the astronauts. I think we'll watch this. This is, of course, I'm now this is free. This is I'm claiming fair use on this. I'm sure Jarrah won't mind to that, which means that it's for free distribution, not for profit, for the purposes of criticism and review, etc., etc. So let's see what he has to say about this.
It's been a long wait, but following the successful return of the Artemis 1 mission, NASA has finally announced the crew of the Artemis 2 mission. Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Koch and Jeremy Hansen. This mission will supposedly be the first manned spaceflight since Apollo 17 to fly around the moon and back to the Earth, and it is scheduled for a launch in November 2024. To say the least, I'm very pessimistic about such a proposal.
Can you hear that, guys? Can you hear that all right? I think everyone can hear that, yeah. There's Jarrah's video here. I'll go back to, you can hear that, yeah.
Last month, NASA held the Artemis 1 post-flight media teleconference, where reporters could ask questions concerning the spacecraft and how well it performed. Most reporters asked questions about the heat shield, which sustained more damage on re-entry than expected.
Can you hear it? I mean, it's coming quite quietly in my earphones. It's Curious Droid. Oh, we'll come on to that in a minute. I want to mention Curious Droid, yeah. But could you hear that? Because Jarrah's voice is quite quiet. Well, maybe it's the soundtrack, maybe it's just my earphones, but it's quite quiet there. But let's go back to Jarrah.
My question concerned the 2 crash dummies carrying Geiger counters and scintillators and other radiation detectors to measure the radiation environment during the flight.
Oh, Jarrah asked a question. We'll come on to the video where Jarrah asks a question. He was in the press pool and he asked a very good question.
Measuring this radiation was one of the big selling points of the Artemis 1 mission. My question was answered by the Orion project manager, Howard Hugh. Here's how that exchange went.
Oh, he's embedded it into this video. So here we go.
Thank you. Our next question is from Gerald.
Actually, I will show you. Actually, because I think it's a bit louder here. But this is the actual video. This is the actual recording of Jarrah asking this question of the mission manager here at this media teleconference. It says here, Jarrah White's question during NASA's Artemis 1 post-flight update media teleconference. Right. This is the description here. My question appears about 56 minutes into the teleconference and concerns 3 coronal mass ejections that occurred during the Artemis 1 mission. The man answering is Howard Hugh, the Orion program manager. Okay, not to be confused with Howard Hughes of The Unexplained, my favorite radio show, or one of my favorite radio shows. Here we go.
Thank you. Our next question is from Jarrah White with GW Studios.
Yes, hello, thank you. There were 3 coronal mass ejections during the Artemis 1 mission, one on November 22nd, one other one on December 7th, and a third on December 9th. Such major proton events can pose a serious threat to the astronaut safety, might even kill them. How well did the Artemis 1 shielding hold up against these solar flares, and what were the radiation detector readouts regarding proton flux and energy?
I don't know how many of you heard that. Again, the quality is not very good. This is like a phone-in. Jarrah's asking about 3 coronal mass ejections that took place during the Artemis 1 mission. Now, as you know, that there were 3 dummies, and there were all kinds of instruments for detecting radiation on board that spacecraft during that mission, which was an unmanned mission around the moon. And Jarrah wants to know what basically was the results of that test, about what kind of data was detected by those instruments, how well they fared up in terms of the spacecraft shielding, how well did it perform against these coronal mass ejections, because we are entering the solar maximum now, just like we were during Apollo. So that's an excellent question, Jarrah. Let's see what Mr. Hugh says.
Thank you.
Pause.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with you as those events. I talked a little.
He's not familiar with those events. If he's the manager of the mission, he should be familiar with solar flares at the time that the mission took place? It's obvious. It's an obvious thing. It's an excellent question from Jarrah, and Mr. Hugh is struggling to answer it. He should know that this should be one of the priorities of the mission, of this test mission, because if they're going to send human beings in a few months' time, they'd want to know, wouldn't they?
A little about those radiation sensors that we had across the spacecraft. So we do have radiation protection within the spacecraft. Of course, we're measuring the radiation we experienced on Artemis 1. That data will be very important to inform us going forward.
So, good question, Jarrah. I'm claiming fair use on that video as well. Let's go back to Jarrah's original video.
White with GW.
Okay.
The audit on December 9th. And what were the...
It's slightly quieter, the soundtrack here. Let's see if I can boost it. But basically, he's asking the same question there. There we go. There we go.
radiation detector readouts regarding proton?
Yeah, I sensors within the spacecraft. That data will be very good.
I know more about those solar flares than he does. That's not very reassuring.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't. It's not. If you're one of those 4 astronauts. Yeah.
Would think that they would have had the radiation detector readouts analyzed before boldly claiming they are ready to send astronauts to the moon.
And they should. And it all should be published so everyone can see it.
It gets worse. I did not know this at the time, but the day after the press conference, the crash dummies containing these detectors had only just arrived back in Germany, and thus the radiation readouts had not yet been analyzed.
Cue Michael Shrimpton.
But I'm afraid it gets even worse than...
So they haven't analyzed the data collected from the detectors with those dummies, because the dummies represent basically they are facsimiles of human bodies. So the best place, basically, if you want to know what happens to a human body in that environment, you have to create a kind of model human body to test it on first, which is what those dummies were, with the spacesuits on and everything.
Than that. The planned trajectory for Artemis 2 is very different to that attributed to Apollo. According to this NASA press release from August 28, 2018, the spacecraft will first reach an initial orbit flying in the shape of an ellipse at an altitude of 115 by 1800 miles. The orbit will last a little over 90 minutes, and
that's the whole apogee-perigee thing we were talking about earlier.
Will include the first firing of the interim cryogenic propulsion stage to maintain the Orion's path. After the first orbit, the ICPS will raise the Orion to high Earth orbit. The second, larger orbit will take approximately 23.5 hours, with the Orion flying in an ellipse between about 115 and 46,000 miles above the Earth. Yeah, the problem with that is that such orbits would place the Artemis 2 right in the hearts of the Van Allen radiation belts for considerable durations. They say, oh, the Apollo astronauts, they only spent a very little time crossing the Van Allen belt. Well, what's Artemis's excuse going to be?
Good question, Jarrah. Yes, because this is not going to be this. They can't use that line again, can they? I mean, it's questionable. Even the Apollo, as we discussed, it's questionable even for the Apollo missions.
Here is what NASA's own scientists had to say about such a mission long before the Apollo program. This page is from the book Astronautical Engineering and Science, and was written by J.W. Keller-Ekdahl, 1963, of the Marshall Space Flight Center. Here they are talking about using a carbon shield in the inner proton belt. The resulting shield thicknesses are seen to be quite formidable, with approximately 100 grams per square centimeter needed to reduce the total dose rate to approximately 1 Roentgen per hour. Consequently, due to the very large shielding penalty involved, the intense regions of the inner Van Allen belt will probably be a forbidden region for manned orbiting vehicles. To put that into perspective, the Artemis 2 only has 20 grams per square centimeter of shielding. 100 grams per square centimeter of shielding would be equivalent to a meter of water, and completely surrounding the Orion would make it too heavy for the SLS to launch. SpaceX's Starship, intended for Artemis 3, is said to have a solar storm shelter, but we still don't have any technical details on such a shelter or know if it is adequate. Nor do we know yet if its launch vehicle can even fly.
Why doesn't NASA just borrow one of those from Elon?
With just the Orion on its own, the orbits proposed by NASA are practically guaranteed to subject the crew to a lethal dose of radiation. So what's this mission to be? Death by space radiation? A hoax? In all honesty, I suspect the mission will be cancelled long before it even gets off the ground. Here is a list of the Orion space flights. The first unmanned mission, Exploration Test Flight 1, was launched in December 2014. The second unmanned test, Artemis 1, which went around the moon and back, wouldn't launch until November 2022.
I've done an entire video about this, and of course we have discussed this on the Apollo Detectives as well with Jarrah and other people.
That's an 8-year gap. And keep in mind, back when George Bush proposed the Constellation program, the first manned flights around the moon were supposed to be no later than 2015. Leaked internal memos are already talking about postponing the next mission to 2025. If NASA's track record is any indication, we can probably expect the mission to be postponed to 2030, and then cancelled by whoever replaces Biden.
Right, yeah, that's very interesting stuff. Like I said, check out Jarrah's channel here. If he's got loads of very interesting things on his channel. It's I've watched some of these already. So yeah, check. And there's he mentions Bart Sabrell there, several other people. Of course, he appears on the Apollo Detectives too. So do please check out Jarrah White on YouTube. So yeah, I mean that's Jarrah, because Jarrah knows a lot about these things. He's always a good go-to source on the science and everything like that. And Max says Jarrah wants to go on a SpaceX mission to Mars. Why are you so eager to go on when he says it will be a suicide mission? Well, he didn't. You see, he's as Max. I think we've already been through this on the comments reply video. But you got to. Jarrah stated that he believed it would be possible. All he stated was, it was actually me who discussed this with him. All he believed was it would be possible to carry out a manned mission to Mars using rocket technology rather than, say, anti-gravity, free zero-point energy, which is what I suggested that technology would be necessary for that kind of mission. Jarrah said no, it wouldn't. It could be done with rockets, with existing rocket technology. Well, basically based on rocket technology, of course, would be much more sophisticated. He didn't say it would be a suicide mission. He didn't say that. Sweep says, none of the astronauts on this mission matter. It's a non-landing show, NASA theatre. It's all publicity, but they are toying with affirmative action or part of the public testing of acceptance. Yeah, of course, it's all very. Space has always been a very political thing. In the Cold War, of course, in the time of Apollo, in the 60s, in the first decade of the space race, it was all about the Cold War. The space race and the Cold War were connected. Of course, now in the 21st century, in the third decade of the 21st century, the space race and space exploration is equally political, but it's attached to cultural Marxism. It's attached to wokeism in the same way. So it's kind of inevitable. Yeah. Rosesun says, have you been over to see the YouTuber Bruce Sees All? He's God, his telescope on the moon. He's captured structures and movement up close. Stunning to look at. I haven't, but I've heard of things like that, Rose. I've heard of people who've discovered strange things on the moon. Yeah. Including things that look artificial. I mean, some of them have been found on Mars too. Stephen, did Van Allen go back on what he said about the belts? He's made several, both sides in this debate are claiming quotes from Van Allen. Max, I think maybe we could tackle this question. This is Max asks, so White believes a mission to Mars is possible once the moon isn't. I don't have the details at hand to answer that question. Apparently I haven't, but I don't think it is the contradiction you seem to be portraying it as. David says, wondering if my posts are appearing on your site. They are, David. Are they? Can you not see them? I don't think we've got a spanner this evening. Anyway, guys, so I think that's really all I want to discuss. I'll go through the notice comments. What I'll do is I'll go through the notice comments, of course. I mustn't forget to do that, must I? Don't forget the notice comments. But I forgot the notice comments on the last video, actually. What's happening here? All right, so studio's playing up now. All right, so I was trying to change. I was just trying to change the thumbnail, and it's through wobbly. It's because my computer's old and tired, I think. Dave, there we go. Or maybe I can't. Maybe I can't do it when the live stream's on. Okay, well I'll wait till afterwards. I'll wait till afterwards, and I'll change the thumbnail then. So I'll just go to comments. I'm just going to check the comments here. Hide held for review. I don't have any. Good. Okay, and here's notice of upcoming live stream. I'll actually go to the video as well, because some of them don't always bloody appear, do they? They don't always appear on the... They don't always appear on the notice. Here we go. I'll just go to the... I'll just go to the video. Right. Okay, Max Q says, get ready for Ben Emlyn-Jones, the self-proclaimed space expert, to unleash his vast knowledge on the Artemis 2 mission. I hope you are ready, guys. You have been ready. Although I know you're being sarcastic, Max. I don't believe I am a self-proclaimed space expert. I don't call myself a space expert. I'm interested in space. I don't think that word has ever been used. I've never used that word to describe myself. Other people have used it to describe me in a sarcastic way like you are. Mark Porrett, at last, NASA is finally getting moving again. Well, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? We will wait and see. Jarrah is dubious about this whole thing, as am I. But, and of course, there's been a huge amount of publicity with the selection of the astronauts. Very, very stunning photographs of them. The kind of thing Hollywood produce for their publicity shot stills and things like that. Of course, as you see, there's this diversity and inclusion element to them, so it fits in politically with the mainstream flow. But again, we won't know until the launch dates approach and whether or not they launch or not. Obviously, I'm going to cover. I will be covering live streams. I'll be doing live streams and things like that nearer the time. There may well be another Apollo Detectives, and of course, this will be regardless of whether the launch happens or not. Neil Duran says, I love a good sci-fi film from NASA. They don't have to teach Hollywood a thing or two. Yeah. Or maybe it's the other way round, Neil. Sweeps Foxman says, standing by, mate. Giddy, giddy up. Go already to the thumbs up. You're welcome. Neil says, will they mention how they cope with the Van Allen belts and cosmic radiation? Correct. Now, there's two replies on here I can see. One is from Max Q. Says, that question will be answered 60 years ago. Do try and keep up at the back. The real question is, how are the defectives going to answer their critics when they, the defectives, see each other for their ridiculous claims demolished? Rhetoric, no argument. Let's take Henderson, for example, going on what he says Artemis 1 must have been a hoax. You can't get a signal through the ionosphere. We've done all that. See the problem you have? The defectives in the coming years are going to... Yeah. The problem you have, the defectives in the coming years are going to have a lot of questions they're going to have to answer. Well, Max, to coin a phrase, we shall see. At the time you wrote that, no rocket apart from Artemis 1 has got off the ground. BZ Garson says, and any other related subjects usually means that he will manage to shoehorn Trump into the conversation. Yay! Where we go when we go all. Israel Diego Rivera says, film studio ready for action. Synth Fox, good to see the nutters are still out there. Yes, whom you watch continuously, don't you? Now, let's just go to the... by the way, let's just see what we have here. Okay, I can't... Oh, here's something I can see. I can't actually see this on the actual video, but I can see it on my comments list. James Cousins says, so Israel Diego, do you think that Bigfoot has been to the moon? Or are you going to tell me that the Patterson-Gimlin tapes are fake, like the original moon landings? Big feet appear on craft and have been seen in the presence of UFOs. That's right, James Cousins. That's absolutely correct. Indeed. Good example, the 1965 Presque Isle landing, the sighting. Some people were actually in a car it was actually on the shore of the Great Lakes. It was Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes in Pennsylvania, USA. They parked their car on the beach. There were 4 people in the car, I believe, and this Bigfoot came out of the woods and started attacking the car. It left scratch marks on the paintwork. Just before they'd seen a saucer-shaped craft landing a little way away. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Dave. Thank you very much, David. Splendid Isolation, sticking up for me there. Okay, guys, that's all. That's basically it. I mean, for the last show, by the way, for the last live stream notice, I did collect the comments, and I will be responding to them in the next comments reply video, which will probably be this weekend, because that'll be probably my next video. So just to let you know. So anyone else got any more comments or questions? Because that's about it, really. I think that's all. Really, I think there'll be more to say when there will be a lot more to say. I think when if and when it takes off, if and when there is a launch. If it happens in November, whether it'll be cancelled and delayed for a following year, or as Jarrah said, Jarrah claims they'll probably just keep kicking the can down the road until such time as they can cancel it quietly without anyone noticing. On the other hand, there could be a launch in November, and we will see a rocket going to the moon with these astronauts on board. They'll be smiling and waving and taking selfies. Will they really be on or near the moon, or will they be doing something else? Diego Rivera. What about the English big? That's like saying, Ben, what's your thoughts on UFO disclosure? Health effects of radiation from the CDC say it can kill you. It certainly can with the right particles, and things like that, and the right type of radiation, if it's strong enough, yes. URLs don't show up in chat. Look, I don't know why that is, David, because I can't see any been approved for. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm looking at StreamYard. I'm looking at StreamYard rather than anything else. Maybe I'll just I'll just go and look at the player. Maybe it'll appear there. I don't know. But it's always a problem. It's always a problem when you're dealing with what's it called? When you're dealing with basically links, it's always a problem. Let's have a look. Because normally some will be held for review, and I can't see them in the StreamYard. No, I can't see any here. Can't see any here, mate. Sorry. I'll post links in the last Effectors video, Dave. Okay, Max. The real genius. Okay, so that's all. That's it, really. Anyone who wants to add anything else or ask me about any other subject? Because otherwise, I'll call it a night. Oh, Rose is off. Good. See you, Rose. Take care. Thanks for joining us, Rose. Much appreciated. Will there be an Artemis disaster like Apollo 13? Obviously, I hope not. I wouldn't want any real disaster to happen. Was Apollo 13 a real disaster? Obviously, I've tackled Apollo 13. I did it on the 50th anniversary. I did a radio show on Hapanwo Radio with Mark Casalan specifically about Apollo 13. Turns up and by X. See you then. Thanks, Phuket. Thank you for joining us. I would want them to be safe. I mean, some people are claiming, for example, I heard someone say once that the astronauts, why are the astronauts so old? Well, first, they're not old. They're 40-somethings. They're middle-aged. And someone said, if you send younger people, it can be dangerous because their bodies can be harmed more by radiation. So another reason, of course, is that by the time you reach your 40s, you're more expert on things, aren't you? You've learned more and you're you know more. And so that's the thing here. Sweep says, I work with the Navajo Nation. They confirm Bigfoot knew of them centuries big. Yeah. They call Sasquatch, the Amerindians call them, yeah. I always wonder if the live streams of space cut on UFOs. They do. Kimmy Panda 95XX. They do. I mean, there's a delay on that. You said they're live, but they're not actually completely live. I think there's a 10-second gap between when it's filmed and when it actually goes onto the web for people to see. Just like with news reports, it's live news shows and live TV broadcasts, so that they can press the chicken switch in the gallery if they need to. It takes a long time to become an astronaut. That's right. Where's Stevens? Where's Stevens? Are there creatures flying around in space? Well, there's these space serpents, a story Musgrave saw. That's a very interesting thing. They've been seen from the ground too, flying through the astronauts. 69 Phuket. I'm 53 and an expert at flipping switches. Oh, well. Good for you, mate. The astronauts have square chins. They are sort of like, I suppose, they're not. They're quite. They have. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if they're attractive or not. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know. None of them. I mean, obviously, it's only the woman I think of in those terms, and she's sort of like average, I'd say, in terms of looks. But that's my taste. That's just, these things are all kind of. I suppose these are all kinds of like subjective. Of course, they're made to look good in these films and in these photos. They have their hair done and everything. They're shaved and everything. Bruce Willis. Yes. Well, if there's an asteroid and he's blowing up, we know what to do. We know what to call, don't we? I've seen a black leopard in Blue Hill, Chatham, Kent. Sega Saturn. They live in this country, don't they, big cats? You know, see Richard Freeman and what he says about it. What material are parachutes made from, as polymers don't react well to extremes of temperature? I don't know. I don't know what they're made of. I mean, they may be the space parachutes may be made of different things. Kimmy Panda says, always wondered about the fascinating, really, surely the live status is false advertising. They can sometimes they make mistakes. Like this is why people have captured images of UFOs on live streams, usually just before they cut off. Is there a spacewalk going on? I don't know, Stephen. I don't know. Yes, they do. Yeah. Anyway, guys, tomorrow night, 8 p.m, the Hapanmo Show on Hapanmo Radio. Do tune into that, because I've got Miles Johnston on the show. Yeah, see, this is going to be a good one, that is. Just go to hapanmo-radio.blogspot.co.uk. You can find the notice. Perhaps the crew was selected because their looks make them easy to CGI. Anomalous data point. You're even more cynical than I am. But, yeah, to be honest, I mean, it can't be ruled out that we will be looking at deep fakes an awful lot if this mission goes ahead. It can't be ruled out. The real genius Bruce will end up saving the galaxy, but remember nothing about it. Maybe Luke Skywalker can help him. So, guys, thank you very much, all of you, for taking part in this. Sega Saturn, anomalous data point. Welsh Ripper. Yes, King Charles wants all grey squirrels. Oh, yeah. I'll be saying more about the coronation when it happens as well. Van Allen has stated exposure and intensity and duration can be kept to an acceptable level. Well, yeah, there's this. He made several comments about this. Hello, Fletch. You're welcome, Fletch. Third rail. Sorry, there's been a couple of weeks without third rail. It will be back hopefully on Monday. So do tune in. Thank you very much, Fletch. The next third rail radio will probably be on Monday. Ben, our planet's born. Yeah, out of the accretion disk of solar system. Black Goose Sweets. You can have them if you want, mate. No, nice, David. Thank you very well. Thank you very much, David. Kimmy Panda, I'd love a fully honest live space stream that shows UFOs. Well, you know, if the white hats are in control of the truth embargo, maybe they'll take over NASA. You know, and look at Bill Nelson has made some really strange comments about UFOs. It could be we will see one. Maybe this is how disclosure will happen. A mistake. I hate when people do that, but I do. Will lead to, oh my God, there's a UFO near the ISS, yeah, or maybe even near the moon. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for another great discussion. I'm well, thank you. That's called Thunderbirds, says Phuket to Kim Panda. Oh, man. But I appreciate you. And Welsh Ripper, thank you for joining me. Max Q, Stephen Truthseeker, Anomalous Data Point, Sega Saturn, Jimmy Roach. Who else? Sweeps Foxman, of course. How can I forget? And everyone else who has tuned in this evening. Tor Engen. And everyone else. Jarrah. How you good? Jarrah White himself has turned up. Hello, Jarrah. It's good. Thanks for joining me, mate. He says, looks like I turned up a bit late. The Artemis 2 is supposed to make 2 lengthy orbits in the heart of the radiation belts before TLI. See my video along these lines. Jarrah, yes, we've just been studying it on this live stream. And also your very interesting phone call during the press conference. That was quite a scoop you got there. Mr. Hugh had a lot of trouble answering your question. And as you say in your video, where's the data from the dummies? It's all gone to Germany, but are the Germans holding on to it? So yeah. So thanks for joining us, Jarrah. Sorry you couldn't join us earlier on, but we will be doing other live streams on this topic, and you're welcome to come along and take part like everybody else. So good guy. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. The next video will be the comments reply video at the weekend, and also a Panmo show tomorrow night, 8 p.m. and also Third Rail Radio next week, next Monday probably. So take care, all of you. Keep watching the skies. Keep watching to see what happens next in this story.